everyone. Thank you for logging into our Wellness Wednesday webinar. We are about to start. This is a platform focused on health and wellness with guest speakers from around the world answering your questions about physical, mental well-being. My name is Zarmina and I'm excited to be with you on this journey today. For today's session, do remember you may submit your questions into the chat feature on this platform, and we will certainly get to them during the second half of the program. Joining us from Switzerland today, Dr. Vitse Soljan and Dr. Edith Coronado to help us explore your genetic potential and learn what your DNA says about you. This includes the relationship between nutrients, diet, and gene expression. A little bit about our speakers today. Dr. Vitse has been working in different biotechnology domains, including with professional athletes, developing personalized supplements and nutritional programs. His work integrates genetic predispositions in order to provide a personalized approach towards health, performance, and beauty. Dr. Edith pursued a career in molecular biology and biotechnology. She previously worked in genetic engineering products, developing novel biosensors, and now in charge of design and development of DNA panels and genetic analysis. Dr. Vitse and Dr. Edith are both co-founders of Nutrigenext. Thank you so much for being with us today, doctors. How are you?
Thank you, Jamila. Thank you very much. Thank you, PhD, for having us here. No? Yes, please.
Very happy to have you. Thank you so much. So, doctors, can we start? So let's start with the biggest question that our viewers have today. What is nutrigenomics testing?
So I hope that I hear well. No? So the first question is regarding nutrigenomics. So I would like to give you some small introduction before entering into the topic of nutrigenomics or nutrigenomics or nutrigenetics. No, technically we are speaking about genetic background, no, or genetic such. No, so I would like to give some small hints about what is actually genetics. So we can say that genetic is a study of genes and how genes may influence our body, of inherited mutations, and what these mutations may do in our body. No. So this is a story about the genetic as such, no? So speaking about the genes, what are the genes? Genes are practically the main functional parts in our DNA, which is located in our cells, no? Which are about 30 to 40 trillions in a body of cells, no? And they are distributed in 23 pairs of chromosomes. So practically what genes do, they code, they have the information how specific enzymes in our body are produced, no? What these enzymes do. So these enzymes practically are connected with different metabolic processes in our body. For example, how we degrade fats, how we assimilate or consume, oxidize carbohydrates, and so on. So depending on how we have what kind of genetic makeup we have, this is how we will interact in our body. So going back to the topic of nutritional genomics or nutrigenomics, it means practically how different nutrients that we eat will affect our body, or how these nutrients will be degraded in our body. Is it a good? Is it a bad? Do we have really genetic makeup that can efficiently degrade specific, for example, saturated fats or sugars, or do we accumulate these fats in our fat tissue and so on? So this is a story about nutrigenomics, no? And why having information about our genetic makeup will help us to solve the problem how we can eat and how and what we eat affect our body and our metabolism. So this is in general about the what is nutrigenomics and what nutrigenetic is. No?
So that's a great background. I think you mentioned a lot of key points. And the real question is, what can our genes tell us about ourselves? What does our DNA tell us? What kind of information should we be looking for?
So one interesting thing that my colleague commented about genes and the units that produce proteins and enzymes that are going to tell us to tell our body how to do everything, all our functions. So in our sequence of genes, we have a different units, let's say, and these units, just because we inherit them or because there are some processes that make mutations, these units can have some changes. And this is something that happens naturally. So these small variations, most of the times, are things that we don't even notice, that they don't have any impact on anything. But sometimes, with a lot of research, it has been found that some small changes can have a real impact. For example, many studies have found that they studied, I don't know, 1,000 people that are obese, and then they see that all of them have, or the majority of them, that they have one change in one position of only one part, one unit of this gene. So that's how they come with the conclusion that some small changes, variations, they can have a real impact on something that we can measure, like our weight, or like our color, or like our susceptibility to the UV rays, or things like that. So this is how one small change, and it can have an impact on us. And this is usually something that happens normally. What happens is that we have two sets of something that he said in our chromosomes. We have one set of chromosomes that come from our father and another from our mother. And if both of them, they have the same exact copy, then we will inherit it the same. But if one of them has one change in one point, in one of these points that is crucial, for example, for fat accumulation, and then I inherit it, I can have this tendency to accumulate more fats. And this doesn't mean that I will accumulate fats all the time, but it means that I have to be aware that I have this, and then there are things that I can do. Maybe we can speak a little bit more further with more detail in another question.
Just to add what it said, what has been this small change? No, this small change really is only about 0.1% in our genetic material, that we differ ourselves from one person to another. No, this is such a small change with a huge influence. No, and another curiosity, for example, if we compare human DNA with banana DNA, we have 60% of similarities with banana. No, so it means that just such a small change have a huge impact on our body, how they are fat or have a tendency, which is a tendency to be fat or fit. No, so this is one how this genetic actually might have the impact on our body. No, but of course, what she said, it's a tendency. It doesn't mean automatically that if we have specific so-called, let's say, negative variants or negative combinations of genes, that we will automatically be or fat or sick or whatever. There are many other influences and many other genes that are also interrelated in this. And also one huge factor is environment. How do we live? How do we eat? And how do we, let's say, what kind of physical activity we do, and so on and so forth. Which may exaggerate or on a long term cause that this effect will become real on our body.
You know, Dr. Vitse, you mentioned tendencies, and then you talk about the environment. So what is the relationship between your genetic tendencies and your genetic makeup, and the environment, the impact that your lifestyle has, and the external factors? What is that balance and relationship?
Yes, because speaking of genes, we inherited our genetic makeup. So our genetic makeup is as we inherited, and we are most probably going to die with this. So there are some different mechanisms that might change it a little bit, but technically it's the same. So our genes are what we have from the beginning to the end. So the way how these genes actually may have impact on our body, there are many other influences. And what is the major point is the question that genes actually, what I mentioned at the beginning, contain the information how these genes are expressed, no? And this expression of the genes, so production of specific enzyme, is also affected by the environment. So there is a direct correlation between the environment. When you say environment, in this sense, we mean your lifestyle, your life habits, your eating habits, your everything. For example, if there is a effect, for example, in Dubai, in the region of Emirates and so on, we can say, okay, there's a high temperature or humidity or something that in this case, for example, may affect the expression of your genes related to the skin, for example. No? And if you have, for example, specific genes that may cause lesions on your skin, and if you are in regions with a high sun exposure, this may provoke further on. So there is a direct correlation between environment or your lifestyle on how your genes are expressed to produce specific enzymes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So, Dr. Vitse, you have a specific experience with athletes. For over 10 years, you've been working with athletes and fitness and designing those programs together with Dr. Edith. What does somebody who's looking to enhance their fitness, who's looking to enhance their abilities, what are they monitoring? What kind of information do they need to have that positive effect on the, the small changes that they make, the lifestyle factors? What kind of information are they looking for, particularly when it comes to athletes?
Yeah, athletes, exactly. And athletes is we can say generally athletes, but we can differ general population, which is physically active, like fitness, gyms, which go regularly to do some regular physical activity, and professional athletes. No, these minor changes, if you look at the genetic level or genetic makeup of the physically active person, may direct actually in some specific direction. Either the person has tendency or predisposition to perform better in sport which are more endurance or more strength related, no? So because taking different factors, the factors that have been already studied, no, many years ago, no, we might now have the information about what kind of muscle fibers potentially we may develop better, and different type of muscle fibers may help to be better in one the other sport. Also, for example, the supply of oxygen, which is quite important, for example, for the endurance sport. If the person does not have a good supply, maybe this is not actually the direction to go towards this sport. Then the blood supply, circulation, development of different type of muscle fibers, and muscle metabolism is also quite important, whether the person is better to use carbohydrates or fats. These all information can help to direct person which direction he or she should take. On the other hand, when we look at the professional level, now, professional level of athletes, it means that we've been also working with Olympic athletes. No, there are a few things that we have noticed. No, one is that we can practically the top athletes in the same sport discipline, they have quite similar genetic makeup, like they are genetically predisposed to do this type of sport. And the other thing, what we have noticed, for example, discussing with the professional athletes, that they, without having this genetic information, they already, by years of training, by years of nutrition plans and so on, they already found out what actually is good for them to have the best results. And this is a kind of years of training, years of being in this trial and error. And then what we have, for example, noticed that in practically in one day, we gave them the information, they already knew and trial and error did many years ago now. And for example, one that we discussed, he said, well, this is actually what I'm years and years I'm doing this and trying, and this is something what I didn't know actually, that this is my biology, my true biology, and I didn't know why this type of nutrition, this type of training is good for me. No, I've noticed that it is giving me the best results, but I didn't know. So having this analysis done, we practically gave them kind of rapid answers. So this is something that may help not only, for example, the athletes that are already in a top level, but the athletes that are going to take this direction, to be professional athletes, that they may improve their training, nutrition, or all the regimes related to get the best results also. No, this is somehow genetic may help. And also there is one important point in genetic and sport, that when you have two professional athletes, two Olympic athletes, one, for example, which has who has a better genetic makeup, most probably will be the first one, no? Will gain, will have a medal, no? So these are, especially in this high top level, these small changes, aside nutrition, aside training, aside everything, strategies, how to win a race or whatever, no? Genetic may play the crucial role.
This is something also that I wanted to discuss a little bit. It's not related to sports, but it's related to the diets. And us and me as a woman, I find myself many times reading in Facebook posts or whatever about the new diet and the keto diet and the paleo diet and all these things. And one thing we notice is that, for example, one of the genes that is essential for fats metabolism. We know that if you have this, it's impossible for you to follow the keto diet because you will start immediately gaining weight. So this is something that we recommend for people before starting all these trends of diets, and try to be sure if this is something that is going to be good for you, because these changes, if it's not a balanced diet, these little changes can really have a big impact, and then they just end up motivated or frustrated and just thinking that it doesn't work. It works, because there are a few people, like the athlete that he was discussing about, he's strictly on a keto diet, and for him this was something perfect, and that's why it was working for him. But he was recommending it to everybody that was coming to him, and not for everyone. And he is one proof of that, because before we started doing. We founded this company. He started by chance one keto diet, and
well, unfortunately, it didn't work.
he started gaining weight.
I had a reverse effect.
After that, when we started doing the analysis, and then we discovered what he had, and he could easily find out the answer why this is something that he cannot do. So this is something that I wanted to complement the information about the athletes, but also for regular people, for everyday people that try to follow diets around.
So Dr. Edith, I love the detail that you went into, and of course you work on designing and developing the DNA panels. So I'd like to know, I mean, for myself personally, my husband and I would like to take the test. What does the process look like, and how do you work on which panels? How do I know what panel I need to take? How can we identify them? What is the process? What kind of test it is? A lot of people don't know. Is this a blood test? Is it a saliva test? What is that process?
So there are many types of tests, but of course now this is easier and easier. The techniques are advancing rapidly. So how we do it is a simple saliva test. You get a tube where you just spit after 30 minutes after eating. That is, that you don't have pieces of food, and then from this saliva that we receive, we extract the DNA, and the DNA comes from the small pieces of cells that are from your cheeks, or from the inside of your mouth. So there is a small amount of cells that are there floating. But this is even if it's small number, it's enough for us to extract DNA. We extract DNA from there. We purify it. That means purify it. And then with this DNA, what we do is that we put it in a platform, in a machine. That what it does is it has some specific reagents that will bind only to the small variation that we are searching. So I wanted to mention this only because I know that there are some concerns about privacy and DNA information. There are many companies, especially in the United States, that they do whole genome sequencing, and then you give them, when you sign your release, whatever, you give them the right to use it or sell it to a third party. In our case, what we do is we use it just to test the small variation of one unit in this gene that we say that we are going to measure, and the rest we don't even bother about it. So this is something that it's in our guidelines of data privacy and protection. And then with these reagents that we use, it will tell us if it has the variation that is mostly in the general population, or if you have a variation that you can be in this small percentage that you have a change in this position. In the case that you have a variation in this position, you will have a report where you say if you have only one, because you have two copies of the same gene. So if you have one change, then you will have, let's say in your report, you will see there's a yellow, it's a warning. If you have both changes in the same position because they come from your father and your mother both, then you will have it a warning as a red, because then you have to be aware that this is something that you have to take extra care of. Or on the contrary, for example, if it's something that is related with sports, if you have one variation or the other variation, you can have, for example, be more tendency to have sports of sprint or strength or endurance, or both. If you have one for your mother, one from your father, then you can have tendency to do both sports equally. So this is what you will have in this type of analysis. And another thing that I want to mention is that it's not something that is, people say when I see all the information about genetic analysis, is try to imagine that you have, in the case that you have something that is a risk for something, for accumulating fat, or for something that for you is not ideal. It's like if you had a gun, and then you decide if you fire this gun or not. And this way, you deciding to fire the gun is, okay, I know that I have the risk to accumulate fat, and then I will stay in my sofa sitting and eating all the fat that I can have. Then you're firing the gun. Because we have seen this many times, that, for example, for this specific gene, we have found it that there are people that they have the risk gene, the risk variation. But this is people that are very sporty, they take very well care of what they eat. There is one person who is a coach, but she's all the time taking care and she's thin. On the contrary, people that have it, and specifically they don't exercise, because we have a small questionnaire so we can know that what is the cause of this, then we can almost see a direct correlation of some of the genes and the lifestyle, and when we see it. So even if you have some risks, doesn't mean that you will have it, but you can contribute to it, or to not turn off your gene.
I think that's such a great reminder that we all need it, that we are responsible for contributing to a risk, or maybe, working against it and changing the I guess the outcome potentially. That's so important. And I'd also like to understand, on the experience of taking this test, how can I decide which one is right for me? What are the options? And how often do I take this? Is this a once in a lifetime, or is it every year? What would you recommend?
Well, for sure, test is once in a lifetime, no? Because as I mentioned, genetic makeup does not change. So technically, when you, for example, make the test once or now, it is for the lifetime. Nothing will change in that sense. So this is the one thing. The second thing is what test to take is well, it's a relative question, I would say. So it's a question what interest you have, on what would you like to find out about yourself. We do have a specific type of tests to target specific groups, no? So one can say that, for example, if you are interested, are you predisposed to gain weight, or have specific sensitivity a genetic sensitivity, not like a food intolerance or something like that, no, but genetic sensitivity to specific nutrients, or you would like to reduce weight, so we can say this is the whole group of like a nutrigenomic test, no. There are other type of tests that can be done also targeting, for example, deficiencies like vitamin deficiency, mineral deficiency, no. There are other type of tests that can be done, or groups that is more sport related, no. There are group of tests that are more like a detox related, no. For example, the function of the liver, can you detoxify specific compounds? Is it something that provokes your accumulation of something in the body that on the long term may cause specific other problems? Also, we can target, for example, groups like stress management. Are you psychologically, unconsciously psychologically more prone to stress, or are you stress tolerant, or more stress prone, for example, than the sleep problems, sleep disturbances? So there are many fields. What kind of tests you could do, and what kind of information you would like to have, no? But speaking about all these tests, what I mentioned now, they are more like well, let's say more lifestyle tests. Not, I would say like this, these are non-medical tests, no? So we are, and in general, this is what we are discussing now, it's more lifestyle, not medical tests. So we are not telling anybody, or we will not tell anybody, or we will not enter into the domain of disease, no? That we might, I would say, sometimes I'm saying when we did the tests that technically we can see the future of the person, no? So indirectly it's true, because when there are specific indicators or genetic variants that may indicate something, this is sometimes we put it as information, as a remark that this person may have specific health issue related if does not take care of specific, let's say, nutrition and lifestyle and so on. To give this information, for example, we may say that we noticed that many, because in questionnaires and so on, we ask some specific questions. For example, are the person which do have specific health problems or underlying health issues, that specific genetic variants are correlated with specific health problems. So there is, on the long term, if we know now, let's say, having information in a younger age, we might eventually prevent potential health risk in the older age. No? So that's why having a test, it's you can practically, you have to know what would you like to know and what kind of information you would like to have, and then genetic can test anything, you know, to give you some information about your predisposition or your tendency. You know?
That sounds incredible, and I'm definitely signing up for one right after this session. And I think it's so invaluable to understand yourself a little bit better. You know, I make so many lifestyle choices on a daily basis, whether that's caffeine, whether that's what kind of diet I'm doing, what kind of exercise I like, or that I think it suits me. And it's so important, and it would help me make a more informed decision. Usually I wait towards the end of the session to take a Q&A, but we have a wonderful question from one of our viewers that I would like to put to you, Dr. Vitse, because it fits in very nicely with what you said about our genetics. So the question is, can we change the information coded in our genes? If yes, then how? If not, then why?
Well, you know, there is one question about this is the ethical question. No? Technically, there are potentially so-called gene editing approach. No, we may speak about genetic editing and so on, but so far, I think that on humans, it's something like that is not allowed. No, so there are many examples that gene editing is possible. No, so. Well, technically, I would say, technically, we can say, yes, you can simply cut specific gene and replace it, and then you have another genetic makeup, no? But then there is a medical question, how long term this change may affect you, and of course, ethical and so on. So technically, it's possible. ethically is not possible, I think it's legally also not allowed.
It's possible technically in one cell, because you cannot edit
Sure.
the whole organism that is a person. So just to clarify, so technically in a lab. Okay.
That's great.
So I don't know, did I?
Yeah.
If you change, yes. Not
Yeah.
why.
But that's you can. What Edith said, okay, on a whole human body, I think technically it will be difficult. But you can on a DNA level. Now you're speaking about specific gene. Yes, for sure, you can do it. Now you can switch a specific or change or delete specific part of the gene or whole gene, and then you have another type of genetic makeup. So it's possible. No? It's easy and possible. But on a whole human level, I think it's still not possible. No. And simply because of long-term health consequences, and what I mentioned also, legal issues and ethical issues. So in this case, we might produce super intelligent babies and super athletes and so on. It's possible. No?
So I just want to complement this question for the person who did it. Maybe that he's more interested in knowing if he can influence, if he knows that he has something, if he can influence it, like with direct changes. So there are things that we can do. For example, methylation is one of them. Methylation is a process where certain compounds that are called methyl groups, they sit on top of our DNA, and they say, you don't do anything. You stay silent and you keep quiet and you don't do anything. So from where does these methyl groups come? From where your grandmother used to say, from cruciferous vegetables, from broccoli, from spinach. So that's why for our grandmothers always were saying, eat this and this. They didn't know, we didn't know, now we know. So these methyl groups, what they do, they sit on it, and they help to silence some genes that might be bad for you, for example, cancer. And what thing can do that you remove these methyl groups, for example, smoking. So if you smoke, it's something that you can alter your DNA also, and also do that some parts start producing things that are not so good for our organism. So this is something that we can modulate, for example, or we don't change the structure of our DNA, nothing changes, but we say to our body what is going to be on and what is going to be off.
Mm-hmm. Yes, what you mentioned actually is something like on a whole genetic level or whole gene level, so-called epigenetic level. We can influence aside being gene editing our genes, which is not what I mentioned possible for legally at least. No, but we are speaking about the expression. We are speaking about the production of specific enzymes which are regulated on the higher so-called epigenetic level with this process which is called methylations. So these are like a small locks, let's say locks or unlocks, no? Which, for example, may regulate a large group of genes to be active or to be expressed. For example, that's all. If we have on a global genetic level, no, some switchers or triggers, we may, in this case, we may influence our existing genetic makeup. No, it is now that for example, sedentary life, smoking, what I mentioned, sun exposure, stress. They not on the genetic level, but on so-called epigenetic level, how the DNA structure, how the DNA molecule is formed, may affect. No? So on a global level, so we simply modify, may or could modify this by altering these small features, no, with these simple, practically life changes.
And this is also that we can also inherit to our kids. So, for example, if this is something that was observing people that passed the war, and they find in their grandchildren things that the stress of the grandparents, when they survive weeks of not eating or things like this, then this is something that can be inherited to even to the level of grandchildren. That is what it has been seen now from people from the Second World War.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was a very detailed description. So I think it brings me to my next thought. So I wanted to know, doctors, in your experience, what impact do these results have on the individuals who take this test? So what changes do they make commonly in their lifestyle? What's their takeaway? What's their benefit to an individual for taking this test in your experience commonly?
Yes. So this has been, we have also our experience of what we have seen, but this is also being documented. There are several studies that are already published in some groups in Netherlands, where they have exactly tried to measure this. If a person knows the risks that they have, or if they know that they will have the tendency to be overweight, for example, what will they do? And what they notice is that it can happen two things. One thing is that they say, okay, I find out that I have a risk, then I will do something about it, and I will not let my DNA govern me. So I will dominate this and I will fight against it. Or it can happen something else, that people, especially because more our experience is with the market of weight control, so that's why I'm speaking more in this sense. Or the other thing that can happen is that people that from all their family history and all the what they have been living through all their lives, they say, well, I'm fat because my mother is fat and because my grandmother is fat, so I'm fat. So when they see that they don't really have a genetic reason to be fat, then they take this seriously and they say, well, this is my fault. This is not what I thought that it was just because I was born like this. So this is my fault, and this is really something that it's my influence. So it can happen both things. People that they didn't know they have a risk, and now they know they have a risk, they try to fight against it, which is a positive thing. And the other, people that they thought they couldn't do anything about it, now they know it's their fault, and then they try to also to get active and to try to reverse this. So in general, the conclusion of all these works is that it has a positive, as long as the person is a little bit more conscious about it, it has a positive impact, because it can either remove a burden that they have if they were all the time going to be like this, or they accepted that they have this risk and they fight against it.
That's such a great point, Dr. Edith. I think it's so important, like you said, to really identify the key factors, because otherwise you may just be making excuses at times, perhaps just not having the right information, So then you go online and you start to do the diets that are recommended to you by your personality type, or something that has no relation and no basis, and could even be harmful in the long run. Personally, I a few years ago was on a paleo diet, so quite like high in fats and things, and I thought, this is great, I'm losing weight, I'm building muscle. But actually, when I've done my tests recently, it didn't have such a good impact on me. So now I have to reverse years of living one way, and it was years, and I thought I was doing really well. So I think that's so important, and it's always good to remind people that your health starts really internally. Look inside before you make decisions in your lifestyle. And I think that kind of begs the question, what fields of medicine would benefit from identifying the genetic profile? It's not I would say it's not the most common, for doctors to say, can I see your DNA results? It's not that common. What would you say, and where is the benefit in that?
Okay, this is something what unfortunately we noticed, that many physicians, doctors do not enter into this domain to do this type of test unless it is really necessary, especially for the cancer or something like that, which may be correlated. Also, high blood pressure or cardiovascular disease, where specific genes are really if there is a specific genetic makeup, they influence this part, no? But we can say now that aside of this lifestyle or non-medical tests, there are many different domains where genetic tests are applied. No, speaking about medical tests, for example, you have a so-called pharmacogenetics or pharmacogenomics test. No, what does it mean practically to find out? We are speaking, for example, in this case, nutrigenomics, how specific nutrients affect your body. But in pharmacogenomics, we speak how specific a medication, how specific drugs affect your body, and how these drugs are metabolized in your body to produce maximum effect with minimum risk. For example, this is the field of pharmacogenomics, which is highly applied in a field of, for example, psychiatry. Where there are many compounds which has to be well selected based on specific genetic makeup. There is also a question of so-called cardiogenomics, immunogenomics, neurogenomics. So there are many fields where we can apply genetic tests in a medicine to this is actually a direction towards personalized medicine. No, so having information about your genetic makeup and specific what is important in the medicine domain and drug domain, that you know that the compound, the drug that you take will have the maximum effect with minimum consequences, with minimum risk. So this is the field where you, having genetic information, you may personalize approach towards treatment. No, so this is a little bit more different direction, but it goes towards personalization, personalized medicine. No, so then it may cover many fields of medicine, many fields of really health-related or disease-related genetics. No.
There is also, just to complete this question, there is also the field of diagnostics, because in certain type of diseases, for a doctor, in the traditional way, how they diagnose, they have symptoms, or they make some measures in blood, or things that they can have as information, and then they make a diagnosis. But there are certain types of, especially with rare diseases, that can be very similar between each other, or for example, autoimmune diseases, skin diseases, psoriasis, things like that, that is very difficult to diagnose. So if it's not well diagnosed from the beginning, the treatment it can be a little not exactly what you need. So this is also one field where genetics is now being used. It's something that is not so old. This discipline of for example, for disease diagnosis and using genetics to do this is something recent, maybe 5 years. And also pharmacogenomics is something that is now more and more in fashion, but it's in fashion. Well, there are many groups that are doing it now, but it's not something not so old.
Thank you. That's great. So we will take a few questions now that we are receiving from the viewers. So one question we have is, what is the accuracy and reliability of a DNA test? Is that something we should be concerned about?
Well, we are relying on technique, I would say. No, so the higher quality and the better machine where the DNA is analyzed, more accurate the results are. We can't say that is 100% sure. When you're speaking about few percent, we can just see from the recent COVID-19 tests. There is no 100% sure test. No, even those which do use PCR or genetic approach. No, but we may say there is no 100% accuracy. There is also always a small percentage, 1, 2, 3, 5% of let's say false negative results. Yeah? That maybe some person do have a specific, does not have specific negative effect, or do have. No, and this is something that we should take into consideration. So speaking about, let's say, 100%, maybe 1 to 2% on some specific gene may not be 100% accurate. No? So that's why when we're speaking about the medical tests are done, I would say, in a different approach. Different approach in the sense how deep the results should be to minimize eventual either escape of specific information, I would say, or to confirm that specific information is almost 100% accurate, but it will never be 100%. No? So this is something that we should count on.
Great, thank you for that. We have another question. Will my DNA results be the same or similar to my parents or siblings? So in a family, are the results generally quite similar?
Yes, we have one set of twins, and they were exactly the same. I don't know if it's okay. We can continue. We have to. But yes, what we have seen is that, and I have seen it also with my family, when we have groups of the same family, and they have similar, because they, for example, siblings, they come from the same set of parents. They might not be 100%, but they have a very high similarity. Because of course, if it's, for example, the mother has one variation and the father has the second variation, the kids might have the variation of the mother, the father, the mother, the father, or the father, and so certain types of combinations. But in general, what I have seen, what we have seen is that in families, they are more or less similar.
Okay, great. That's very interesting. I think I'll have to get a few people in my family to do the test if they haven't. So we have another question, and this is more about weight loss. So I'll rephrase it. How can a DNA test help me with my weight loss? But I think maybe we should add on to that how your DNA test helps you look at your lifestyle and have a lifestyle program, because it's more than just, I would say, weight or diet. But how do you think the DNA test that we're talking about can fit in a lifestyle program?
Well, if it is a kind of conclusion, so as a conclusion, I would say actually that the information about your genetic makeup practically is your historical fingerprint, in that sense. But also it's a kind of key for your future, because having this information about your potential and risks, you may it's a kind of a pathway, it's a kind of a road how to live a healthier life and achieve better vitality, I would say, like this. So even though genetic is something that we inherited, we cannot change directly. There are many things that we can influence, but genetic information, at least this basic information, basic in the sense that we know what are our fundamental limitations and risks regarding metabolic issues, so-called metabolic syndrome. Are we prone to gain weight? Automatically, are we prone maybe from gaining weight to have potentially problems with blood sugar, or at the end diabetes, or having problems with coronary disease? So these are all information which may help us by integrating this genetic information or genetic test in your whole lifestyle, may be the information for your healthier future in that sense. Even though there are tests for the sport and so on, that's fine for the athletes, or if you want to be like a fitness enthusiast to have more information how to improve your fitness performance, but having information of these fundamental basic things like deficiency, like sensitivity on specific nutrients, sensitivity to fats, saturated fats, and being able to practically better manage your lifestyle, better manage your nutrition, and being simply having possibility to live longer, healthier, in that sense.
One thing that we all the time when we speak to people, we try to emphasize is that this, as you mentioned, this is not something intended to lose weight. This is something to be incorporated for the rest of your life, because if you know that you are prone to have more abdominal fat, and you know that you have to reduce fat, it doesn't make sense that you just do it to lose weight and then you continue the rest of your life eating as you were doing it before, but that you incorporate these changes for the rest of your life, that you know that you have this and you try to bypass this, and then don't eat this, that you know that for the rest of your life what you're going to have, you're not going to change it. Even if you lose weight, you're going to regain it at some point. But if you incorporate this for the rest of your life, this is what we all the time try to make the emphasis in people, that this is something that you have to continue doing the rest of your life, because it won't change.
Thank you so much, doctors. I think that was a wonderful note to end this session on. Would you have a closing message for our viewers today?
Well, take our test.
I agree. That's absolutely great. Thank you so much.
Well, hopefully this is something that you may take seriously, because the things that we noticed, that the messages that we saw from different clients, that this either on sport, either on health, really this information either help them to improve their life performance and so on, and especially now if we are speaking a life of Corona and COVID, having the information about our sensitivity to not only be infected but to have severe consequences is also genetically encoded. No? So in this case, these are many messages, many information that you might have on one simple genetic test. So
one thing that I want to add regarding this Corona now situation, the first thing that the coronavirus taught us is really the importance of good health to try to counteract any agent that may come to you. So I think this was the first time where it was so direct, that the first people that start dying, it was overweight people, for example, or people with diabetes. So this is the first time, I think, that it made our minds change, that maybe you can start to you can wait for the vaccine, maybe you can take vitamin D, whatever people were doing at the beginning. But this was the first case, I think, where it was so straightforward, that people that were healthy, they were managing very well, people that were fit or not fit but just healthy, and people that were with certain coronary diseases or tendencies or diabetes, they were very, very ill, falling very ill. So this was the first case where it was so straight. So from now on, I think that people are going to start thinking more, in being more proactive, and being acting before you have something, because this was one case of Corona, but most of the diseases are like this. If you're in good health, you can overcome them easily, no? And if you're not, well, no.
Thank you so much. I think that's such a timely message and a timely reminder. And I hope all of us here watching today have learned from this session. Thank you again, Dr. Edith, Dr. Vitse, for joining us. Thank you to everybody who submitted their questions for today's webinar. We hope you gained some interesting insight. If you have any questions for Dr. Vitse, Dr. Edith, please send them on to Wellness Wednesday at THP Global. If you'd like to inquire about the DNA test, we're here to support you and to promote your health, wellness, and well-being. Be sure to follow THP Global online to keep up with the latest health and wellness information. All the links are in the description box below. See you at our next Wellness Wednesday live webinar. Thank you again, doctors. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.